Welcome everyone. Today I want to talk a little bit about a video that I posted on Monday on my Instagram at Golfers That Lift. Shameless plug. What I did was I compared two common rotational med ball throw variations. One is from half kneeling, one is from standing. The point that I wanted to make was that one allows for hip rotation and one does not. So, most fitness pros and most golf pros are willing to accept that the kinematic sequence of a golf swing goes hips, then torso, then arms, then the club. Club lags behind last. So we want the hips to drive the movement. According to Stu McGill in one of his products talking about golf, power is also developed in the hips, not the spine. So if we want to improve power and speed, it needs to come from the hip. It can't come from the spine, and the spine also increases our risk for a back injury. Now, most people have accepted that. We don't produce power in the torso. Power is produced in the ground, in the legs. It's one of our biggest arguments for strength training. We defend strength training, we defend deadlifts, we defend squats, and how those things relate to the swing, but all of a sudden are we not ready to accept that maybe a med ball exercise doesn't actually do what we think it does? So what I want to do is break down two videos. So one is a half kneeling rotational med ball throw, and if we look at it, this rotation is all in the upper body. So this is spine movement. Now, when we look at this, the hips can't move, so we're not getting any hip rotation in this. Is this exercise bad? No, it's not a bad exercise. It's just, what do you want to use it for? If you want to use this exercise for upper body mobility, it's a great option. If you want to use this exercise for control through the torso, again, it's a great exercise. This posture and this position can be used to increase mobility. It can be increase core stability. But does it increase power for golf? Probably not the way we want it to. Some people will ask, well, isn't it good for creating torso power or upper body power? And my only question is, do we want it to? It probably does. It does. But if we're ready to accept that the golf swing kinematically moves with the hip first, then the torso, then the arms, then the club, and we're ready to accept that power begins in the ground, in the lower body, then how important is upper body power or torso rotational power? How important is that for golf? And I don't have the answer, but if speed is developed from the hips and spine power increases the risk for injury, then how beneficial is it really? So if I fast forward and I go to a standing variation, we look. So we want to load back. So we are turning at the spine, but the leader of the movement is going to be the hip. So we come through. Let's see if I can get my video under control. Probably not. So we come here. The hips lead the way. Torso follows. Arms behind. And the ball is behind. At the end, we can see that my hips are square to that wall. That means I was able to rotate at the hip. They led the direction. This is a more specific method to develop power for golf. It takes the stress off the spine and it develops power from the ground. So, are half kneeling exercises good exercises? Yes, I use them all the time. I use them all the time for core stability. I use them all the time for upper body strength. I use them in a linear fashion, in the sagittal plane. So if I'm doing a landmine press or a dumbbell press, half kneeling is great. If I'm doing my core stability stuff, if the goal is core stability, then half kneeling is good. It locks the low back into place. It provides that stability for you. You can't get too rogue with that movement. But if we're talking rotational power, I just don't know if half kneeling is what we want. I don't know if a split stance is what we want. We want the hips to be able to rotate. Most people's hips don't clear. I hear it all the time. Everyone wants to do X factor. Everyone talks hip clear. Everyone talks sequencing. I don't like getting into that stuff because sometimes we don't know what we're doing if we don't have the proper mapping or if we don't have the proper knowledge. But now all of a sudden people don't want to go to those things that they defend so hard just because a half kneeling med ball is a decent variation. It's different. It changes. Now all of a sudden the rules change, and I just don't understand why the rules have to change. If we want hip power, why would we lock the hips into place? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So that was the purpose of my post from earlier in the week. And I wanted to do this video to explain myself a little bit further that I don't know how much we need to rotate through the upper body. I don't know why a half-kneeling rotational med ball throw should be used outside of mobility and control. I think if we're going to rotate, we should rotate while standing, we should allow for good hip movement, and we should promote good hip movement if it's going to relate to the golf swing.